Let's go ahead and get started. In the next 15 minutes, I'm just going to walk you through two main things: a vision of open source networking, how we align with standards and harmonize them, and a brief overview on ONAP, which is one of the most sought after projects in this space. Now, just a background, I've been involved with MEF since childhood, I should say, early days. And ever since the products needed to be certified and all that. So I'm so excited that this has come such a long way with the 3.0 and really, really admire the vision that has been laid out by MEF. And we're excited to collaborate from an open source perspective. So let me sort of start off by saying open source is a phenomena that I think is unstoppable at this point. There are millions and billions of things happening, right? Billions of lines of code, millions of developers, lots of projects, but not every project matters, as you know. Only a few that create sustainable ecosystems matter, okay? And what I mean by that is you can't have a PhD student upload a source on GitHub and say, hey, I'm open source. It's irrelevant, okay? So what we do at Linux Foundation is we focus on projects that create sustainable ecosystems, whether it's Linux itself or Node.js or any of these platform projects on your left, or blockchain-type projects like Hyperledger, or the most famous cloud-type projects like Kubernetes and Cloud Foundry, and application-type open-source projects like automotive-grade Linux, EdgeX Foundry, et cetera, and then obviously projects we care about here at open source networking, which I'll talk a few about. As far as the open source projects are concerned, I'll show you all and the entire landscape. But we have some of the most important projects here where the one key thing that I want to highlight is all the networking vendors are active. 5 years ago, it was viewed as a competitive threat. Now it's used as a sustainable advantage. And so we are having a lot of participation and active participation from a lot of vendors. Open source is now also in the third phase. Everything is going 3.0, so just bear this in mind. For the first 137 years, since the telephone was invented, it was all proprietary. Then came the disaggregation phenomena 5 years ago. Each component in open source became production ready. And we moved now to a harmonized solution view that kind of gets into mainstream deployment in a scalable manner. So what are we all after? We are after services. And we're after services that are on the top, very simplistically, cloud, residential, enterprise, IoT, et cetera. And the problem we have is to connect that to thing at the bottom. Data centers, carrier networks, cloud networks, et cetera. Not a hard problem, but guess what? It's fragmented and manual disjoint tooling. We know that. Very complex, takes weeks and months to fire up a service. So we're claiming that mandatory automation is required before 5G hits. You cannot have a scale of 5G that is 1000x volume, 100x data rates, devices, 1/5 the latency. You cannot have an IoT device waiting for a service that just is going to come in for 10 milliseconds, log on, and then log off, right? It's the biggest use case, and we need to make sure that networks are automated at the software layer. So from a Linux Foundation perspective, we are working on software projects that will help us automate the cloud, orchestrate the cloud. This is Kubernetes plus Cloud Foundry, et cetera, from an app cloud native perspective. This is open network automation with a series of projects, and then this is EdgeX Foundry for the IoT framework, IoT automation. So with that said, I think we've all walked through this journey collectively. I don't see any new grads in this audience, obviously not in networking. So we walked through this from the proprietary black box type solution, right, where silicon to services is all provided by one vendor inside the box, to a disaggregated software-defined virtual system where horizontalization of components has already happened, and all these projects are innovating at a different speed in each of these layers. So it's extremely important that we recognize that not all layers need to innovate at the same pace, okay? And so what we have done is we have come up with a model from the hardware layer all the way to the application layer, where we integrate and sort of present all the open source projects in the industry in one slide, okay? This includes projects hosted by Linux Foundation and projects outside Linux Foundation. So you can see there are a series of data plane acceleration projects. There are a series of orchestration projects, controller projects, application projects, analytics projects, both on the carrier side as well as on the enterprise side, and then a series of standards that help with standardization of that specific layer of the network, right? And you can see, from this slide that a lot's going on. Not all the projects are doing exactly the same thing. Like you could argue that in the data path at the bottom, you see multiple projects. But clearly, IOWiser, for example, accelerates the data plane in the kernel, versus DPDK is a set of libraries on which FDIO is built. So there's a lot of detail that I won't go into here, but that gives you the perspective that each project innovates specifically in their area. And then as you go up the stack, you need that automation layer and the glue that binds it together, okay? So one of the projects I want to talk about, which has accelerated the collaboration, not just in the global community, but also across standards, is ONAP. And for those of you who are familiar with it, bear with me. For those of you who are not, I'll give you a few updates that are extremely important to this project. So ONAP came around because of two open source projects getting merged, eComp and OpenOp. Both of these were in production or proof of concepts in some of the largest geographies, whether it's US or China. And we brought this together in the April timeframe earlier this year, and it was kind of bringing the best of both worlds together. The business value for ONAP is very simple. You want faster services, you want automation, you want to eliminate the manual steps, and you want agility in the network. Remember the diagram I showed you? That's kind of what it is. But more importantly, what we are seeing is it's now becoming a de facto platform for the community to collaborate, right? It's shared investment, shared technology that we are creating, and that has a significant impact on the global industry and the global ecosystem. We are at 55% of the subscribers, 50 plus members, pretty much represented by the carriers on this slide. I'm also very excited to announce here at MEF that we have Turk Telecom joining as a platinum member on ONAP today. In fact, the press release should have just gone out. So again, by the time you submit the slides, I can't make changes, right? Otherwise, I would have done it. It's just 15 minutes left on that one. But we are excited to welcome Turk Telecom as part of the platinum membership, and we're looking forward to a lot more providers joining on here. One click down on the architecture. Remember, this is the automation and orchestration stack, right? It's not just Mano. Mano is a small piece of ONAP. It's the entire Mano control, integration with the Vim, multi-Vim layer, as well as analytics and sort of design time and runtime. And it has a whole set of components that basically form the largest automated closed loop system that exists in the industry today, right? And you can look it up on ONAP wiki. So again, as I said, de facto standard, de facto platform on a model-driven design, multi-vendor, VNFs and PNFs, multi-Vim, multi-cloud, cross-WAN. I mean, this is a platform that the operators and end users are collaborating in a very significant way. And by that I mean, just in 6 months, we have the membership grow to almost 1,400 people. from being very small handful of code contributors, we have diversified the community. Not just people, but also member companies. And it's really grown significantly in the last 6 months. So we welcome people who are not members to join, and who they are, thank you. The one thing I want to spend a little bit more time is on our collaboration with MEF. So if you look at the first diagram I showed you on where things are aligned, that layer of orchestration that kind of sits a notch below what MEF is focused on is ONAP. So what we have done is we have set up a collaboration with MEF where members of each community, and I'll make it very simple, right? There's standards, and then there's open source. And it's a chicken and egg problem. What comes first? And the collaboration we have set up is very simple. If chicken came first, focus on the eggs. If eggs came first, focus on the chicken, right? What I mean by that is, if there are standards that exist, make sure that in the open source community, you migrate towards that as quickly as possible. If standards are not there, make sure that the open source community, through the members, push it upstream and align as much as possible. And there's no, hidden agenda here. The hidden agenda is for your end users to adopt faster solutions. That's pretty much it. So what we have done is we have worked with MEF and its frameworks through our member companies in sort of the Legato and the Interlude and Sonata, all of it, and made sure that as we look at APIs, and there's a project inside ONAP. By the way, ONAP has 30 projects. It's quite modular. Each of them can iterate separately. One of them is the external API framework, which can collaborate and has collaborated with MEF. So for those of you who have not seen the demo downstairs, through AT&T and Orange, Amdocs, other folks, there's a demo downstairs that sort of shows you how to do this global implementation. But more importantly, the demo does not stop here. It's going to be carried on in the MEF platform overall, and you will see a lot more of this coming up. We're working, of course, with other standards bodies as well who are in this space, and we'll make sure that the APIs and the northbound gets aligned, especially because the BSS systems have to interact with OSS and the infrastructure below. So very quick, whether it's an operator to operator, right? And in case of, say, Vodafone or Orange, right? We have global deployments of these operators in different countries, right? So you can sort of do that across in a very, very standardized manner, okay? So take a look at it, and we're really excited to participate with MEF here. So to wrap it up, automation is a key before 5G and IoT hits. I think this should be no surprise now. I've been beating this drum for the last 9 months now, and I think it's about time we take this seriously. And ONAP is becoming the de facto platform for automation with global participation, almost all vendors active, very vibrant community, and we are working and leading the industry effort to standardize across open source and open standards. So for those of you who need to just get educated on how the two differ, because we've all come, like I ran standards for the last 20 years, right? And I've been doing open source for the last 10. And you can see there are differences. There are differences in licenses. There are differences in with architecture versus implementations, APIs versus SDKs. There's a whole set of difference that you got to understand. So if you need more information, please download this white paper on our Linux Foundation website. It just explains the differences on how IPR policies are different and how we can work with each other to make sure that we have the right setup for collaborating for many more months and years to come. With that, thank you.